Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. It's your girl Lori, and today I'm going to continue on this life fulfillment series. Yesterday we did the meditation, and I talked about mind, body, and spirit, which means, and they all do align, but it's just about how do you embrace it. It's got to find that balance in between soul, spirit, right? So there's like a four, but it's mind, body, spirit. And one of the things that I do on that, right, and we'll do body tomorrow, but one of the things that I like to do, I'm an intuitive person. It's just kind of spiritually, that's just what has always aligned to me. So like this is my moon deck. I have a totem deck, which is like an oracle deck as well, like a tarot deck. And then I also have my shaman cards, right? So in the morning after, it's a whole process to start my day. You got your 5 journals, you've got your setting your intentions, grounding, and pulling my cards. So a lot of times what I will do is I will pull, well, not a lot of times, it depends on what mood I'm in. Sometimes I'll pull a card from all 3 decks. Other time I might just do a gratitude deck. Sometimes you have angel cards or whatever. And it's just meant to just be like, hey, okay, what areas do I need to work on? What areas do I need to ground in? So I brought that up because I want to ask you, right, to really evaluate what you align with from a spiritual perspective. Not a religious perspective, a spiritual perspective. So because your mind is one thing, your body's another thing, but your spirit and soul is going to be like the core to all of those things. So you have to ask yourself what it is that you align with. Me personally, I grew up in a more of a secular kind of place with religion as like Southern Baptist, and it just really didn't align with me because there was a lot of trauma that I went through. I have a whole podcast on religious trauma. So there's a little bit of like, when I say religious trauma, it's just, this is right, this is wrong, this is what you need to do. And then over a period of time, I just got to a place where I was like, I don't know, like, I don't think this like resonates with me, because especially being an intuitive person who can talk to crossed over people, you're kind of like judged and ostracized, but it's just part of who I am. So I went more down the path of, during my own healing and everything, went down the path of a Buddhist practice and a shaman practice. But I also have clients all over the world. So I like a little bit of almost like various religions, I guess. But for me, I'm a very spiritual person. So I will hug a tree. I will ground myself. I will embrace my binaural beats. I will love my meditations. I will do my cards. Various things like that, because that's what makes me tick. So a good indicator for you on what makes you tick is, what do you actually align with? Not what were you told to align with, not what do you think you're supposed to believe in. Literally, like I've said before, you could believe in just this box. You could be like, hey, this box makes me happy. This is what I align with. Well, then align with it well. Be the best box aligner ever. So it's about being clear that just because you have a different belief system as family and friends and various things like that, you're going to want to be extremely careful on allowing them to prevent you from following whatever journey that is. That's the imperative thing, is for you to really get and set in that space of saying, okay, this is what aligns with me. So let me give you a tip or two on how you can figure out what aligns with you. I want you to sit down and think about anything that, this is going to take a paper and pad kind of thing, paper and pen. And think about the things that you were taught. Okay, I'm not asking you what do you align with right now. I'm just saying, what were you told from either a religious or a spiritual perspective? What were you told? Okay, and give yourself time to really write this out. Really time to write this out. Might take days, might take weeks, might take months, right? Now, once that happens and you really get clear, because you're not going to know it all off the top of your head. Different things are going to come up and it's going to be like, oh, that's one too. Now, I want you to go back through that list and I want you to say, okay, do I believe that? Not what were you told to believe, not what were you told to align with. How does it feel? If you're like, well, I'm not really sure. Okay, well, that's fine. That just means that you can explore other options. So you go through each one of these lists. Some you might be like, yes, that feels good. And it feels good in your soul. You don't feel obligated to do it. It just aligns with you. You're just like, oh my God, this is great. This just feels like second nature. That's how you know that it aligns with you. Okay. Now, just because it doesn't feel like it aligns with you doesn't mean it does. It doesn't. Anyway, because when you try something new, it might be a little unique for you, but it still aligns with you. So you have to ask yourself that. So as you go through this list and you say, okay, this is mine, this is mine, this is mine, If it doesn't align with you, right? Let's say it does, you have a few of them that do, and then others you're like, yeah, this, I don't think it feels good to me. Ask yourself why you feel the need to keep doing it. Well, because it's just kind of like, this is what we've always done in my family. Okay, that's not, I didn't ask you the history. I asked you, why are you holding on to it? Well, because I don't want to like make my family upset. Then you're not ready to make that change. Because in order to make that change and to really align spiritually, physically, mentally, this comes into boundaries, all of those things, you got to be willing to not be understood. You can be right, you can be happy, can't be both. So you need to ask yourself when you go through that list and say, okay, this isn't mine, this isn't mine, this isn't mine. This is mom's, this is society, this is my teachers, whatever the case may be. You have every right on the planet to not do what it is that they want to do. So where you feel that pressure, and there, like I said, there is an episode on my podcast on religious trauma, because sometimes that can come into play. And you want to definitely visit that and evaluate it. Because before you start worrying about, well, and self-love is a huge part of that. Because in order to have a good self-love, you want to have a good spiritual practice. It's like called spiritual hygiene, right? Like it's a good spiritual hygienic practice. And that means to be honest with yourself too. So when you get yourself in that space and now you're like, okay, well, the kind of like the building of those boundaries, and it's kind of like it's easier to build on now because you're building on the boundaries, you're building on your self-love, you're building in all those things, and it's just working out like tremendously well. So it comes over a period of time, but you have to ask yourself, are you willing to kind of take this spiritual journey often on your own? There's a reason why some people, like I know some people who have gone off to like ashrams to do some like monk practices. I know people who have gone away to a silence retreat to have to really sit with themselves, go into different places. So you have to ask yourself, are you willing to be uncomfortable? Are you willing to challenge what your belief system is? You may go through this challenge and be like, yes, this is for me. This is absolutely for me. On your journey, however, let's say that whatever you think that, well, whatever the family has aligned with in the past doesn't align anymore. It's not your job to change them. This is your spiritual journey. Remember, it's a stay in your lane kind of thing. So you want to have that spiritual practice, because when you have that spiritual practice, the mind will start to get there. So you're in that mind, and then your body will also start to respond to that, right? Because you're not carrying that anger and that kind of like, oh my God, who am I? And you're not living in some weird box. But again, you have to figure out what aligns with you, but you can't do that trying to be safe and trying to make everybody happy. So your goal is to go through that list of your belief systems from a spiritual perspective, okay? Go back through and ask yourself, do I align with this? Okay, yes, 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 no, yes, no, 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 no. Cool, right? And then go back through and say, okay, the ones I don't align with, you align with them, that's fine. But even those you can analyze. Do you really align with them, or are you telling yourself you align with them? So it's good to go through each one of them and ask, why does it feel so good to you? It just does. It just aligns. It feels so safe. It felt great. I don't mean safe from a codependent perspective. When I say safe, it's like, oh my God, I just feel like I could just release everything. Vulnerability is a better word than safe. So when you go through that, that's what it is you're looking for. And if you can say, I don't really have that, then that's a really good indicator that you may want to evaluate and look in other places. I know you could read the Bible, you can read the Quran, you can read the Gita, you could read a lot of things and see what really aligns with you. Because when you see outside of that box, you can really start to find out who you are. And I think that's a big key too. Don't just think that you have to keep the same practice for your identity. That's not going to serve your best and highest good. So go do that exercise.